We can change it when we get there, Karen. Okay, we will call the Morgantown Utility Board regular meeting for Tuesday, October 11, 2022 to order. We have two sets of minutes to review and approve. They were both in our read ahead, September 13, 2022 and September 29, 2022. So we need a motion. If they're okay, we need a motion to approve.
I have a correction.
Yep.
My first name is spelled that's the name.
Tom?
Tom should be just Tom. T-O-M-O-M. Not Tom, not Tom. That is my legal name. Tom.
Fair enough.
My apologies.
I didn't even know that, and I've known him for 100 years.
Okay.
With that correction, I move that the minutes of the September 13th and September 29th, 2022 meetings be
Second.
Motion and a second to approve both the September 13 and September 29 special meetings minutes with the correction of Tom's name. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes approved. Public portion, anybody out there like to speak to the board or the staff? Walk up to the podium, give us your name, address, all that? Nope? Okay. Move to new business, Star City Police Department and 84 Lumber Building.
Okay. Jessica Colbank, she is the Star City Chief of Police, contacted me about renting part of MUB's building there beside the Star City Wastewater Treatment Plant, also known as the old 84 Lumber Building, for the purpose of making it the new Star City Police Department headquarters. We were able to tour the facility with the chief and look around and give her plenty of warnings about rats and things of that nature. But she has some excitement about the prospect of doing so, and she understands rather that it can only be a lease, and if the time comes that MUB would need that property, whatever improvements were made are just gone by the wayside. And so, we obviously have no timetable, but that purchase was made for, for the community when the time comes that Star City does have to be expanded. And so, wanted to let the board know that we had that discussion, and with the board consensus, we will have further discussion about it.
question, once a lease is developed and finalized, that will be brought to the board for approval.
Oh, yes.
I would ask that made pretty clear in the lease would say that, when the time comes and whatever, if it's 30 days, 6 months, 18 months, whatever that time frame is. But that's pretty well spelled out. That, if there's no timetable, I don't want there to be a situation 20 years on where it's, Bond County has a couple 100,000 plus people in it, and we need to expand that plant, and then all of a sudden Star City is in a bind, or the management of Star City at the time is taken by surprise that they would have to relocate.
The chief and I discussed that probably be able to give them at minimum a year advance notice that we would be working on a project. Just the development of a project of that nature would take a year, so, and most likely it would even be more notice than that if we can come to an agreement.
I know we are pretty good with our facilities. Have we been a landlord before, and are we equipped to deal with the landlord type things, which I became all too familiar with over the last couple years with the Richwood program.
I believe that we have was the main point of contact. And no, right now we haven't even got that deep into the weeds. It was, the building was used by the contractor as a laydown yard and for some office space, and it's in rough shape, and there's no question about it. When I mentioned rats, that's not an exaggeration. They find their way in. And so there would be I think there will be a lot of discussion about what would transpire and how all that would work out. And so, if it sounds like we can come to some agreement, obviously the benefit to MUB is we have a neighbor to keep their eye on things, and they are police officers, which makes even a better neighbor to keep things safe. And there's ample parking. I mean, we have a lot of room, and so it doesn't make sense not to share. Well, we can.
I think it's a wonderful idea. And Star City has been doing some great stuff of late. Not just of late, but continuing to grow, and it'd be a wonderful opportunity to help them get some elbow room.
So right now what we're doing is just you're presenting the idea. We're saying go forward. Then that will be a lot of work to be done with Star City. Star City.
I would think it's absolutely.
Now, as a point of information, to whom do we share this with in Morgantown?
Well, I think the first point of contact would be Kim Haas, city manager, and I can relay this on to Kim, and we're exploring the idea.
This property is actually within City of Morgantown?
No, it's in Star City.
Why is it that you need to let him know?
Well,
To improve communications, perhaps?
and it would probably be something we would discuss anyway, just because we have normal conversations.
So,
So we will move forward, and Eric, I will probably lean towards your expertise in some of this.
Well, yeah, I think it's similar to Densmore's property, right, where we've offered to work with the city on some stuff there.
Yeah, yeah, the
This
same thing.
property was purchased for long term, and so if we can, it's better than letting it deteriorate. Yeah, so. Yep.
I think so, because the plant is not manned 24 hours a day, and it's great to have neighbors, and just keeps the bad element away.
Okay. Move forward.
Okay.
Investment policy.
All right. We met with representatives from Truist to discuss MUB's current investment policy and discuss some changes that could be made to help increase the value of our reserve funds. I believe that was where the board wanted to see the direction go. Jeff crafted the red line document for your review. So I'm going to kind of defer to Jeff here this evening, and if you have particular questions, certainly no action needs to happen this evening, but if you see something that you believe needs to be changed or improved upon, please let us know.
Sure.
We should be receiving at a minimum quarterly report of the fund's performance versus the benchmarks. There's no reason, though, in my own mind, that it wouldn't be a monthly report. I have accounts with TIAA, I have accounts with Fidelity. They generate monthly reports where I can generate and see how our portfolios are performing relative to the respective benchmarks. So I would imagine and it doesn't have to be a detailed report, 1 or 2 page summary, so that we can just monitor the investment performance versus benchmarks. Usually these reports will report performance to date, or from the last month, performance for the quarter, and performance to date for the year, so that we have an ability to track the performance over time.
We do get the reports. Chip, would you like to expand on that? We can make sure every board member, we can make copies and go back as far as you would like to see what we have received.
I thought we asked for that actually when they did their presentation.
Right, I thought so too.
So before in conjunction with this, I'd like to see the reports as well.
Sure.
Well, I think you can probably generate a PDF and just send it. Doesn't have to be all the details of the investments or anything like that, but it's just the performance to date and performance over the year, and then at the close of the year, the annual performance that we can see. And I recognize that we have to go through a cycle, sometimes 2, 3, or 4 years before you have a full understanding, but we as a board, I think, need to see those investment reports.
Yeah, we get this monthly right now, and it is quite long, but there are some summary pages
Right.
that indicate exactly what you're saying.
Right.
And it should give 5 and 20-year outlooks. It should give 5 and 20-year outlooks too. I'd like to see over the lifetime perspective as well.
We'll start sending those out each month then.
The second question I have is on page.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Send me the full report, actually. I'll take it, yeah, because I'm used to reading them, so it's fine with me.
On page 4, it says the equity value of the investment should be between 30% and 50% of the total portfolio in the reasonable judgment of the investment manager based on existing market conditions. I think it would be better to have that go from 30 to 60 or 40. I mean,
I think 50's high.
50 something. Well,
How's your portfolio doing these days?
but we're looking short term. I'm talking about,
But even so.
right. But I think, it's permissive. It's not mandatory. But, and it's based on the reasonable judgment of the investment manager. So 30 to even 60. I mean, it may average out to 35 or 40. But I think that's a very narrow range of between 30 and 50. I would prefer to have a little broader range, but I don't know. I defer to the other members of the board as to what their inkling is. This is not the retirement portfolio. This is the working capital investments that we have for various projects and what have you. So we want to keep, we don't want to be whole hog in the stock market. I can, believe me, I can attest to what it means to be whole hog in the stock market these days. But the other aspect of that is, in terms of the bond portion of the portfolio, it might be useful, and maybe the monthly report shows the average maturity of the bonds, because we need to know whether they're going short or they're going long on the bond portfolio. I think that would be consistent with what you would have suggested.
Yeah. How about 25 to 50
For corporate, for equity.
Well, we're 30 to, I think 30 to 50. You could go lower, but again, it's up to the investment manager to make these determinations. I think there needs to be a little broader range, just to give some more latitude to the investment manager. And
this council's got the discussion that we have with the recommendation.
yes.
This is probably fairly typical of what they're doing. So corporate bonds can't exceed 50% of the total fixed income portfolio. Okay, so no more than 10% of the amount may be invested in any one corporate issue.
Sure. Nothing about junk bonds.
But
It's classic, they have to be A rated, I think it says.
It does.
By Illinois bonds. And Illinois municipal bonds, they're junk.
Are they A
Are
rated?
they rated?
No, they're junk.
It said at the time of purchase they must be rated. No matter.
So do we want to move forward with suggesting that Jeffrey use 60% or leave it for still asking?
Or do you want to do that?
Make a note,
here?
Jeff, and then as isn't a final
Oh, no.
note to.
And then get the reaction and see if that's something that they think. And again, it's range. Management, we will perform.
I'm not particularly comfortable with exceeding 50% because it's public money. Talk more about it. I'll look and see what the portfolio's been doing.
It's ratepayer money. Yes.
It's public money.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments for now?
No, I think any public comment. Yeah. This allows us to guide. Give some guidance
Oh,
here.
the other question I have is an annual contract with them in terms of the management of the portfolio and the fees that they levy against us. I assume we do.
Contract right now, it just rolls over every year there, because we ask for that, I'm pretty sure. With Truist, you're saying, right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that should be there.
It should be net of fees.
Mhm. And we should have the opportunity at any time to change managers if we need to, so based on performance or fees or costs.
Wishes to advertise, we can do that.
Well, I just raised this question of an annual contract. I think it's best if both parties, in a sense, this investment policy is implicitly an annual contract. But it doesn't have a duration or whenever it would be reviewed or reaffirmed or anything along those lines.
I think we started Truist before I joined MUB, but it surprised me if there's a contract. That's just roll over year.
It would be nice too to know every year if the manager, the portfolio managers are staying the same, if they're changing, if we don't have some kind of contract or renewal, something, we're not gonna know and they're not gonna think to tell us. So I think some kind of something that renews that we have to approve every year would be a good thing.
So I'm used to having quarterly reviews, so that you can ask all the questions you need.
Okay.
You would envision a board meeting,
Right.
they would come at a particular board meeting each year.
Yeah.
Historically, it came annually. Sort of got out of
Because of
plan
COVID,
because of COVID.
we'll make sure we will do it again next year, near the same time we did it this year, calendar wise. When we brought them in for the.
Well, it should be probably February or March, after the end of the fiscal year, so that the calendar year, so you can see how the performance is relative to
And
the
given the
benchmark.
really good idea to be even more, I know it's long term, but still it would be a good idea to probably pay a good attention.
We'll make a note of that February, March to get them in.
Okay.
Okay? That it? Move on to old business.
Okay, the Pocono Run Sanitary and Stream Restoration Project. I believe Friday we received E.L. Robinson's report on their estimate of costs. Rich, that's correct. And I did not make copies to bring, but I'll make sure everyone gets a copy. So we're moving ahead, and Jeff, correct me, but that was a component of the agreement with the ARPA funds.
It's a necessary part of the agreement. So now that we have that, I've finished reviewing the agreement today, and we'll be able to comments back to the city and the county commission.
Right, we would be a subrecipient of the county and the city.
What was the estimated cost estimate?
For construction. I don't believe that included the engineering. So that's for something, and we'll have the total cost breakdown.
Okay.
I apologize, I should have brought that this evening. So we are moving forward.
Good.
So we have the cost breakdown, we have the estimate, we still haven't finalized the agreement? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Now, since we've got the cost estimate, I've gone through and reviewed the agreement, made a few comments that will pass back to the city and county commission.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but wasn't it at one point to be responsible reporting or something to do with distribution of the grant funds that we on the hook or reporting or something?
Not sure. There are reporting requirements required by.
But just
Federal
in terms of the subrecipient, as a subrecipient, nothing else. We're not on the hook for any of the funds or any of that. We just
No, I think you're in the larger picture. No, if it's my understanding, our responsibility will be all the related project costs and showing compliance. We have federal monies, we do that anyway. So we're always showing that information.
If we're able to get agreement with the city and county commission within the next month, we have the engineering plans, right? Or we don't?
No,
Then they will issue, we
will
will issue a contract for the engineering plans?
we have a contract.
We have a
will just
contract.
authorize them to move
Okay.
forward, correct, Rich?
How long will
And
that
so,
And then how long will that take?
Rich, I don't remember what the projected time for the final design.
Can you give us a ballpark estimate of when the expected construction would be?
I would think we would
Spring
be
of
going
2020.
to bid late spring, Rich, maybe early summer.
Okay.
So we're still a year away from construction.
I don't think,
Next construction season.
and I think with some of the construction, it would even be good that it happens later because of, we're in the drier part of the year, in the fall, maybe dry.
Stream restoration.
Westridge.
Okay, our IJDC applications were approved on October 5th, and so now we're ready to move forward with our applications with the West Virginia Water Development Authority for the economic development funding. Those are ARPA funds as well. We have had discussions with the director of WDA, Marie Prezioso. Our application was for a 20% local share, 80% grant. We have been advised that we would need to have a 50% local share to receive a 50% grant. That's about as good as it will get for anyone. And so we have gone back to our partners. We have put together, when we talked about this in the last meeting, how that funding would look. And I got to talk to Marie again today about our application. She has informed me that we will not have to have a support letter, that we'll be able to submit without a support letter from one of the secretaries. There was, I would just say there was a very brief misunderstanding. These are not extensions, but these are improvements in the existing system of water and wastewater. And I think there was just a misunderstanding that we were extending out to an area hoping to grow. And it's like, no, we can't grow because we're overtaxed now. And so once we had that opportunity, I was very pleased to learn that today. So, but she's a terrific person to work with and really wants to see projects move. So we are in a good position at the moment, I think, to get in there more quickly than we had thought. Jeff, do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay.
That does support Milan Park as well. I know you had Chaplain Hill there, but
It does. It will support Milan Park. It will support the new proposed KOA campground, which they have a abandoned mine lands grant to expand, to build their new facility. So a lot of great projects are going to come together here. And I think there's a BMX bike coming. That's coming in. So a lot of exciting projects, I think, are on the horizon, and we're going to be part of that.
okay. Flood control study.
Okay, Strand Associates, they have completed phase 1 of the study, and they are ready to present their findings and recommendations for phase 2. We have met with our partners. I think we talked a little bit about that before, but we have asked WVU partners if they would host the meeting somewhere on the Evansdale campus, because that's close to the area as we're affected, and so we could have a public meeting. We're looking at November 10th. I was hoping to have a location by tonight. I still don't have that information. So we're going to give them a little bit more time before we start knocking at their door and saying, hey, let us in here. We need a location. So, but it is November 10th. Looks like that will be the best meeting date for everyone.
DOH will be invited.
Yes, DOH, WVU. We're going to make sure Star City is invited as well.
How about the city?
Oh, absolutely. The city, the county. We will make sure everyone is well aware of this. And this, again, this is first phase, and then talking about the second phase and talking about probable cost for the second phase. And that's where we really need the cooperation of all of our partners. Because this is not just a MUB project. This is a project for you, DOH, MUB. I mean, it affects all the entities, and so to be successful, I think, in obtaining funding, we need to all go in with the idea we're going to partner.
And I know we had talked a little bit about combining this with the regular board meeting. Is that what you would like to do?
Yes, I think some of on their calendars, it would be tough to try to do 2 meetings. So we'll combine it. We'll do our start at 5:30 like we normally do. We'll get through that's not really the right word. We'll get through the first part of that agenda and then have the presentation in the back part of the agenda.
Well, that's good, because it'll give neighbors some more time to show up. So the meeting starts at 5:30, but we probably wouldn't be until about 6 o'clock or so for that portion
I
of
would
it.
say so, yeah.
One thing too, there's right across the street from the Evansdale campus, there's a church. I don't even know what the denomination, much less the title of it is, but that may be a good place to look at for location as well, because I know folks tend to prefer not to come onto campus due to parking concerns. So that may be
Well, there are 2 churches there, St. Paul Lutheran Church, that Barbara and I are members of, and then there's the CMA Church next door. Okay. So those could be backups.
Okay.
I was going to say the Methodist Church. Yeah.
Right there, that's got tons of space and tons of parking, and it's easily accessible. I used to teach a class there, so
Okay. Great.
and the view is spectacular.
We might need a nice view. Maybe that'll keep the pitchforks coming out.
So I don't know what the possibility are, but there's something out there.
If you got a big enough crowd, you go to the football field.
I like that idea anyway.
That's a Thursday, they might have a game.
Oh, that's true. So our MUB meeting would come with tickets to the game, huh?
No, it's not a Thursday.
Okay. Okay. So we need a motion for that, Mike?
I'll move to hold the next meeting of the Morgantown, beginning at 5:30 p.m. at a site somewhere around the WVU campus to be determined in the immediate future.
Second.
Okay, motion is second to hold the next
Second to
meeting.
hold the next meeting on November 10th, somewhere, someplace, sometime. So, are we okay? Like, we have to make sure that we're not going to be, probably not going to be published broadcast. Is that going to be?
Right, we'll probably have to do a video and then put the video up. I don't know that we'll be able to do a broadcast live.
But again, this meeting is specifically.
But for the public to see what the outcome of the first phase of the study with regard to flood control will be. Mitigation. Right,
Because again, you know, and keeping everybody front of mind, we're talking about mitigation and expectations of the level of service. Because that's going to play a big part in, you know, as you move forward of costs. Okay.
Oh, okay, so we have a motion and a second. We need additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, Brownfields grant.
Okay, we've completed our interviews of the licensed remediation specialists, and we are getting started on contract negotiations. And once we have finished that process, we will bring the contract to the board for approval. And again, this is for the Dinsmore building.
Okay, good.
And hopefully the old bike shop as well. We hope to get 2 for 1 here.
Were you satisfied with, oh, go ahead, Eric.
So at our partnership transportation meeting this morning, had a comment from Ella from the MRTC asking about process on the building or progress on the building, and was hoping to be a part of the conversation at the very least once we start talking about after tear down, after remediation, as far as next uses. So I just wanted to put that out there that she would be interested in talking about how that space could be utilized.
Sure.
We would welcome that.
How were you satisfied with the interviews and how it's moving?
Yes, we had some great firms come in, and we conducted 3 interviews like we always do, and they were really good interviews, all 3 of them.
Good.
I mean, a lot of experience there, wouldn't you say, Rich?
Very impressed with all 3.
All right, well, we'll move on to general manager's report.
Okay, we've discussed the municipal bond reserves, pulling those back in some sewer bonds, and so we're hopeful that those will be on the city's committee of the whole in October to add that to the November agenda, and so that is moving forward. There was just some questions about how would those funds be used, and of course we've talked about the sewer line replacement in White Park, which also is University Toyota. Again, that would run from the first manhole, that is the receiving manhole from the existing force main in White Park, all the way down the hill through University Toyota, under Don Knotts Boulevard to the lift station at the water treatment facility. And so that is a big project. Right now, that estimate, and it is an estimate, it could go up because prices are going up almost every day now in the economy. But right now, it's estimated about $1.1 million. A lot of the work we will do in-house, but we will have to contract part of that work out because we don't have the capability of the boring and so forth. We would also be replacing the 1989 model sewer vacuum truck. So it's certainly past its prime.
Someone who started in '89 would probably be eligible for retirement at this point.
Started in 1989.
So the answer is no.
And also, our skid steer has given up the ghost, so we would be looking at paying about 43% of the cost of a new compact track loader, which would run about $34,000. And then I've mentioned this before, I know, but we are looking at some trenchless repairs on our sanitary and storm sewers. We're going to do our first one with a contractor out in the field in November. We're going to do a stormwater line as well as a sanitary sewer line, and so we're going to look and see how complicated that is and what kind of costs we would be looking at purchasing that type of equipment, and doing some more of that work, because again, things cost more every day, and so that trenchless repair is a big plus.
Okay. How long after we get the approval from the city would those funds be available to us?
I had to defer to Jeff.
And we're going to have to defer to the bond commission. We haven't, I think it'll be a shorter time period than that. We've had some preliminary discussions with them. They know that this is coming, and it'd be certainly a matter of just transferring the funds.
Okay, move to the sewer line replacement project inside White Park.
That will be the first phase of the project, and we will be replacing approximately 1,000 feet, and that'll consist of 18-inch pipe, and we're putting 8 new manholes in. We'll be replacing the existing ones. These will be coated to hopefully resist the effects of the hydrogen sulfide gas. We have a walkthrough tomorrow with Bow Park, and so I will be participating in that walkthrough, and Rich is going to go over and meet with some city officials about some paving that we need to do because of some sewer line replacement that was required. And so also the church that was beside of the work was very kind to let us use their parking lot as a staging area, and we did a lot of damage to that part of that parking area, so we'll be repaving quite a bit of that surface as well, but we're very grateful for their understanding. Everything is moving forward, and again, it is our goal to get in and out in January before any of the trail construction would start. And then we would, and I would fully expect, because that's going to be wintertime work, we will have to go back and do some touch-up, cleanup in the spring, maybe some more grass seed and things, which is very common in a construction project like this. We'll do as much restoration as possibly can.
An entirely separate project from the water that will come from the reservoir to the treatment facility. This is a replacement of the existing system.
Yes. You are correct. It is completely separate and apart from that project.
Okay. Survey.
Okay, we've talked about the big survey property there that abuts near the inlet of the Flegel Reservoir. We've talked about the property owners are still interested in selling the property. They'd like to sell it to us, but I do believe that the price range may be out of reach unless we can get some federal assistance, which is maybe possible. Karen and I have had some conversation about that, but we lack a survey, an appraisal of the property, and we'd also like to know what some easements would appraise for as well. And so I would intend to go forward with the appraisal so we can have some documents to provide to the board to see what kind of cost we'd be looking at either for a purchase or for easements, and what kind of funding opportunities may be out there working with our other partners. I think we've had some good conversation here recently, but if they're anxious and they really want to see property go to MUB or some portion of that property go to MUBs, and we need to move forward to get that information.
Now, that property is essential for us to maintain the quality of water, because that's part of our watershed, correct? correct?
correct, yes.
And so I think it's incumbent upon us to see to what degree we can acquire that property through working through a variety of nonprofits and other stakeholders to ensure that we continue to have quality water in that watershed and to the customers of the Morgantown Utility Board.
Absolutely, yes.
So, Mike, are you asking for something here? Do you need us to-
Well, just a concurrence, we need to move forward. It's time.
So you gonna,
What will an appraisal cost?
Estimating about 15,000.
That's probably good money.
Now, we're not going to pay for any research in the minerals. That would just be, that costs too much money, and we're just going to make the assumption that the mineral rights are what they say they are, the property owners, and just go forward from that basis. Because to start going into the mineral rights, I think would be much more costly.
That's a good place to start.
And again, this is exploration to determine if this is something we can afford and are willing to do.
But if it is met coal, JT said he's ready to put his hard hat back on and get to work. Can't help it, JT.
okay. That ends the general manager's report.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on to board member issues, discussions, anything the board would like to bring up to the staff, comments?
Just for the record, we talked about Waitman Street today, just for the meeting. Can you please just reiterate what you told me earlier? That it was just told me earlier. Flushing out fire hydrants, things like that.
Yeah, we had a fire line that ruptured earlier today on Spruce and Walnut, the corner, affected the municipal building on the corner there. So water was out in just that one building, and so that building's currently under boil water advisory. But during the repair, obviously once that line is repaired, there's some flushing that occurs, and that's probably where the discolored water comes into play in the surrounding areas, and so that's probably the reason for that. Yep.
It's finished as of
Correct.
today. It's
Yes.
not an ongoing issue.
Yep.
I was like, where'd all this water come from?
Do you want me to say that?
Yeah,
Okay.
But I didn't remember.
we'll let this finish up. If there's any other comment.
Between that and the water main issue last week, I know oftentimes in very cold weather you can expect water main issues. What would be the cause for 2 in a row in weeks like that?
Certainly, big ones like that you guys hear about. We have old pipe in the ground, and it's a lot of times when there is that fluctuation in temperature, you can get some breakage of lines and find a weak spot or something because of that change in temperature.
Still getting down in the
If it's cold and it stays cold, that's one thing, but that change in temperature could result in some more leaks than normal.
I know you probably track using the GIS system the location of these leaks and the magnitude of the leaks and the need to replace both manholes on the sewage system as well as water line and fire hydrants. Are there any patterns that seem to be occurring, and does this suggest to us if there are definite patterns that we need to be a little more proactive in replacing some of the existing, particularly water lines that I know many older cities around the country have run into major expenses associated with trying to replace out-of-date water lines that wouldn't meet current standards using the materials that were used at that time, terracotta, for example. it would be useful to know if, and I assume you are tracking those types and seeing if there are some patterns and proactive replacement that we need to undertake.
Absolutely. Every leak is GPSed and on our system, and that is certainly what goes into determining what projects we do on a yearly basis. And then if we see those patterns pop up during the year, priorities change all the time here, and you know, though that is what helps us determine what our capital improvement plan is, and maybe we see those patterns pop up and our capital improvement plan changes for the next year to make sure that we're being proactive in some of these areas.
We have an indication over the last 20 years, let's say, the peaks or troughs that have been associated with those lines. Or we continuing and abstracting from inflation, are we continuing to see an upswing in these major events that are occurring that may be attributable to the age of the lines that have been installed?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Okay.
I mean, completely, but certainly we don't lack in pipe in the ground that needs to be replaced.
Okay.
And
I
so,
didn't think so.
and so it's a priority,
Right.
Based on number of customers, you know, how important the line is to our system, how many leaks there are, and so all of those things kind of go into that prioritization that we do for, you know, repairs, and obviously ability to actually do the repair, you know, financially plays a part in that. How much money do we have to spend to replace these? And so certainly all of those things go into play.
Well, the reason why I ask is if we see a projected increase in the capital projects of this type over the next 5 or 10 years, would there be a need for us to secure additional financing outside of what we might charge to our ratepayers to undertake that type of effort? And I know you don't know the answer to that, but it's something looking long terms at maintaining the system integrity and continuing to grow the system, this type of preventive maintenance, which you've outlined, probably continue to grow.
I would say right, because some of the projects would exceed our ability to pay for those as we go, and we would have to go outside and look for bonds to issue bonds in order to pay for those larger upgrades and replacements. And it's just funny. I had this very conversation with Taryn Moser today about the data in our GIS system about dates. And anytime we have available of when it's installed, she always includes that into the mapping system. But you know, so much of our system, as you know, is a legacy system, and we don't really know how old it is. But I think from 1950 or so, records are not too bad. Mm-hmm. But then that's a matter of digging through those records and having that information. So there's a lot of stuff. You know, artificial intelligence is really big into helping you determine what's next in your mapping system. Mm-hmm. And because I find that there's no rhyme or reason. We have newer lines that we've had 3 or 4 breaks on, and then we have older lines, you know, to the 1950s that we're not doing anything with. Mm-hmm. Why is that? I don't know. Better construction, maybe.
Maybe. Location. So, okay. Other topics under the board members? We missed a topic earlier, so Mike.
Yes, I want to get back to the proposed ordinance amending Article 169 of the Utility Board this evening. JT, do you want to talk about our meeting today and where we...
Sure. So, part of the conversation last week was trying to get a communication set up between MUB and the city to discuss communication. And we had a preliminary meeting today, Mike and I and Kim Hawes and Jenny Celine. Pretty much overview of what we're trying to accomplish. It was a somewhat productive meeting, trying to set some boundaries on how the next meeting may occur and what the agendas may be, and together. It was a back and forth, pretty open communication. Yeah. So what they have, actually I was on the phone with Mayor Salim when I walked in. What they're asking, proposing, or asking us for, or requesting is she set up two different times and dates that might work or would work for them, for the city council, and asking if it would work for us as a board to meet either Monday evening, this coming Monday at 5 p.m. And that would be, let's see, I think that would be at the city building. Maybe.
Council's currently meeting at the county building.
Yeah, but then, or it would be 7:30 on Tuesday.
These meetings?
Yeah. The purpose of the meetings are to try to understand the communication deficiencies that the council has and how we might resolve that, as well as the other amendments to the ordinance that we may want to discuss, but primarily communication.
And that means the entire board?
Does not.
I mean, that's all, I'm just asking, are we gonna actually do anything, or is this just a conversation between you and Kim and you and?
No, the whole council.
The city council? The city council. Or is?
That is, to be determined. That's the conversation that we can have. I would hope that there's something that comes out of it. I think personally that the communication question is simple. There's simple solutions to that, right? It's just a matter of understanding what information somebody wants, and then how you're going to present that information to them.
And remembering that it occurred.
So to me, solving the communication gap, if whatever word you want to use, is simple.
You have to sit down and how you want to go about it, and who's going to participate in it, what the issues are going to be, and what the solutions need to be, and
there was a lengthy conversation about ordinary course of business and what that means, whose definition, and I think that was a good conversation. I think they Mike explained, the different definitions. So for us, because and part of the amendment was, that their, I don't know what the right word is, wasn't permission, was it? Approval for, different jobs, projects.
Is that still on the table? Plans for them to approve what MUB does?
I think that's still in the amendment that was tabled, right? So I think that was the conversation that we were trying to explain, and I think they understood that that's a very difficult thing to define, what that is, and it was difficult to define what becomes important to one person versus another person, right? So defining those projects is part of the conversation, right? When that communication should happen, how it should happen, and what project it should be, which is the hardest one to answer, is which project should it be, right?
And is it assuming it's permission versus notification, or?
They're not assuming anything yet. I think it's a conversation. Okay? So I took it as a very open conversation. I took it as them trying to understand what our issues were with the amendments and why they were there. And so I think it was well received. like the $1 million, I think, that was just a number. I think that's something that's on the table.
So we're back to permission.
I don't want to say permission.
In dollars, let's come up with a definitive number, then they're still looking
No,
for
I think they're backing off. I think they're backing off of that, but I don't want to say that they're backing off of it. I think they're understanding that that's not an easy thing. That these $1 million projects.
It's something they want to find out more about.
Thank you. I mean, right now we just talked about White Park, and heck, we were buying a truck for $600,000, right?
Yeah, $1 million in 2019 is a whole lot different than $1 million in 2022.
And what will it be in 2030, right?
Well, I'm worried even about 2023 at this point.
So no, I think it was very open. I think it was very nobody was holding back, so I think I will say that I think that the one thing that appeared to be off the table was the city council member on the board. Did you get that?
I think that's a negotiable point.
Okay.
Well, you mentioned those 2 dates. My preference would be that Monday, because on the Tuesday, I'm going to be prepping for surgery
And
on a Wednesday.
yeah, Monday works much better for me as well. I have an event in DC that afternoon.
next.
Just this kind of.
Yeah, Monday the 17th.
I can't. I'm prepping for a national interview the next morning.
Okay.
Well, just cancel.
Okay.
Not true.
Not true. I'll be on the Sirius channel. I see.
Well, both Tom and Eric are good for Monday.
But I'm not on Tuesday.
Correct.
Monday sounds good.
So what time?
Are you okay not attending?
Yeah, I'd have to be because I already made a commitment to do this interview.
5:30, did you say?
I think it was 5, Tom.
Okay.
We can confirm all that and confirm the location because had a couple things going on in my ear. And then, yeah. Okay.
I'll see if I can.
You can get in on
Yeah.
Zoom or whatever it is, some type of
And it's prep for the next day. I'll see if there's a way we can move it earlier in the afternoon or even Sunday night. I floated both days, so.
But there will be a way to hook up virtually.
Or catch up.
So that'd be 5 o'clock is 10
I believe.
5 o'clock is 10
I believe. 10 to
I'll just block it
Yeah.
out.
You okay with that, Mike? You okay with that, Mike?
Yeah,
Did you say
yeah,
5 or 5? You said
5.
Yes.
And we had some conversation, if I might, JT,
Sure.
just interject about when MUB was deregulated. That deregulation, that was the legislature deregulated the utilities. So the legislature said they don't need the oversight of the Public Service Commission like other utilities do. And so we discussed Senate Bill 234, which passed in 2015. That was a good conversation, and we also touched upon like some of the requirements that we have, like the working capital reserves and things of that nature. So we had a good opportunity to discuss some of those legislative items as well.
And I think it was a little history, educational to how the PSC works and doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, there's obviously a tremendous complexity to a utility. Not saying that running a city isn't complex, because it is. I mean, the variety of subjects that you have to be familiar with is just staggering, but it begs for more understanding and maybe a little more education on both parts. So I think in the future, we all need to think about when people come on boards, they need orientation to the city functions. They need an orientation to the boards in the city, to MUB, to the more complex roles that some of those functions have.
There is a brief orientation. Ryan runs it.
And how long was it? Did you have a tour? I mean, I think all of that
it
can
was
be
very brief,
enhanced.
yeah,
I think all of that can be enhanced, and we all need to think about that, because when we're all interfacing with one another and we're talking past each other because we don't understand, it really makes us, it draws it all out and brings us to this point of having to educate. So we can stop all of that in the front end if everybody agrees that there's a little more in-depth orientation, maybe tours. I mean, I'm so proud of the plant that we have. And I think it's something that the city council members would all be proud of too, is all the facilities in the city, but particularly ours, because they're so prominent, they're large, they're high maintenance, and new, and it's pretty exciting to tour some of those facilities.
And I'd like to make a comment, sort of following up a little bit on what Barbara said. I really commend the city council for the way in which they've interviewed individuals who've come on this board, and they've selected the current board as individuals who represent a wide range of expertise that is relevant to MUB. We have Barbara, who comes in with an HR management organization background. We have Karen that comes in with a background in public finance and financial issues, and in fact at one time had her own firm that was advising on financial matters. We have Eric that came on the board, who basically is heavily involved in economic development in the entire Montague County. I think I was appointed as the only outside member of the board because of my previous time period that I was on the Cheatneck Public Service District, which growth greatly exceeded our capacity and ended up merging with MUB, and the variety of different consultations I've had over the years with the Public Service Commission. And you, JT, you come on the board 20 years ago as the only engineer that we have on the board who has a wide-ranging engineering background. So I really commend the city council for appointing people who represent a diversity of expertise, demonstrated expertise in this wide range of areas that basically bring their talents to our meetings and help represent the individuals that we serve as our customers.
I think that's a good point. Very, very well said. I would like to say too that I think we tried to emphasize that what our objective would be in these communications and meetings is to figure out a way to build, it's like a team building, right? And it's not MUB and it's not city council, it's MUB and the city council. And how do we figure out a way that these become more of a one entity type of conversation when we're talking about different things, and we're not always looking at the negatives from different projects, different isolated projects that become very negative. So, we talked about this, whatever our philosophies are, whatever our politics are, really it's about what happens here and how can we work together to make that happen.
Everything we do is shared. Certainly, the interest is shared by the citizens of the city and the council
and the
that
county.
they represent, and the county and us. I mean, we're just as sensitive to the issues of the county and the city as anybody, because that's where we are.
So I have two questions. One is, I just somewhere in the back of my mind from my days in municipal finance, can you please get an external opinion about whether or not going through with that ordinance would violate any of the bond covenants of us of MUB being an independent organization, and not a local, like.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Executive session.
Yeah. And the one party that we're missing in all this conversation is the county. We ought to invite them, because half of the ratepayers are from the county. They have a stake in all this.
Well, that's a part of the discussion that's going to take place, I'm sure.
Well, they should be included at that table.
Well,
next
right
week.
now it's just a planning to communicate, planning to plan the communications process. So it's just putting what's the structure, and then everybody will be invited.
But then,
They don't know right now.
but neither does the county. we're planning how to all communicate.
Well,
Shouldn't that be?
More of a long,
I think that's more of a long-range scenario, where the county may or may not fit into that. I think that's a conversation. I think at this stage, I think the conversation needs to be between the city and the MUB, with the understanding that that's, something that's a big potential.
And if they're absolutely going to have the city manager on the board, somebody from the county should be on the board. Again, half the ratepayers are not in the city.
Well, I'm on the board as a representative, and the only representative from the county. I try to bring my perspectives as best as I can.
And we all represent the city, but if you're gonna have the city manager, you should somebody from the county
Well,
board as
Okay,
well.
we don't control that. That's what
Right.
the city council
Right.
controls, is who's on this.
Right.
So that conversation is a viable conversation to have, but that would mean that there'd be other amendments to the ordinance for that to happen.
And that's a conversation the city has to have with the county.
Right.
And the fact that the city is interested and willing to have the conversations with us
Right.
is a great opportunity.
Right.
And that's, it could have been moved forward last week, but it was tabled, so these discussions can happen, and I think that's a very positive step, and it's great that we have the opportunity to have these discussions.
Agreed. So we're gonna go with the 5 o'clock on Monday, and we'll get that confirmed, Mike.
Yes.
With Mayor Saline.
And as far as you understood, it was MUB and MUB board and city council and city management? Do you know in general what that was?
We didn't clarify that in today's meeting, but I think we should, and I would assume that I think it would be Rich and Mike. I'm not sure that it would include Jeff, and it would include Kim Hawes. But those decisions they weren't talked about today.
Now and Monday we'll know.
But we did talk about that we make this a that would have to be advertised as a meeting. Yeah. Right?
Well, yeah, if it's the whole group, yes.
And it sounds like it would be part of a previously planned city meeting, so we would be a part of the city meeting, is that correct?
No, this is set up just for this purpose.
Okay, so it would be a joint meeting between them.
And if Brian's going to attend. Pretty likely, then Jeff, you should be going.
We'll iron those out. Yeah, that's a good question, but we'll make sure that those are, discussed. And we also discussed, and I don't think we finalized it, Mike, but we discussed having a, what do you want to call it?
A facilitator.
That's an excellent idea.
So I don't think that was confirmed.
No, it wasn't confirmed, no, but we put it out there today, and we talked about it.
It was received well.
Yes, it was.
I like that idea.
I think it'd be.
So that cover everything?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so that brings us back down to 9, right?
Yeah, we can do the executive session for legal issues now, and then go back to the performance evaluation. That way, Jeff and Rich and Chip, and they could all. But in the legal portion, yes, and then we would come back into session, and then have go into executive session for the performance. I guess we could do both at the same. You could make the motion for both,
Make
and
motions
just
for both
not
of
to
those.
adjourn. We'll just have to come back in.
Why can't we just tell them to get out of the room?
We can, but we have to come back in.
So
Right.
you can make a motion for both the personnel and legal issues, and we can go into executive session, and then when we finish the legal issues, staff can leave, you can have the performance evaluation, and then come back into session.
So that we can report how the, if there's a
If there's
if there's a motion for Mike. Okay. All right, so, that being said,
Jeff, would you like to state the motion so we can say so moved?
Well, it'd be a motion for an executive session to discuss personnel issues under West Virginia Code 69A 4B2A and to discuss legal issues under 69A 4B12 and then return to the regular meeting following the executive session.
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're
just
live.
assumed.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting back to order out of executive session. Do we need to have a motion for that, or it just happens? Okay. So we did some action, so we need a motion for the raise, right?
The evaluation of our,
Evaluation
Of our general manager.
General manager during executive session.
Yes.
Executive session, and we came out of that with an action.
and would you like to speak to that performance before we vote on
Would you like to tell us what we're gonna call a motion on?
a pay increase?
Sure. Okay. So the executive session that pertained to the general manager's evaluation, we went through Mike's performance of 2022, the projects that were completed, went through those and discussed how they were done. Then we discussed his goals, MUB's goals, Mike's goals for 2023, which were described as cleaning out Decker's Creek interceptor, the purchase of flow meters and rain gauges so we could better understand our CSOs and what exactly we're dealing with as far as the rain events go, and enhancing the CSO program as a whole with some of these projects, as well as going through the what is it, Mike? The
Long-term control plan.
Right. The board was very complimentary of Mike's performance, and we also discussed how we as a board could support Mike better. Based on his evaluation, based on his performance, we agreed to a 3% pay raise, which is pretty much in line with the overall pay raises that were given to all MUB employees or staff. So that was pretty much the conversation during the executive session.
And it becomes effective on this anniversary date.
Comes
Right.
effective, I would say on 10/19/2021.
Just to clarify, these are new goals that he has been assigned in addition to his regular duties and responsibilities.
And not really assigned as much as this is what Mike expects of himself to accomplish.
That's correct. 2022.
I did mean that. Did I
Yes.
say 2021?
Yes,
Thank you.
so for the next year till your next anniversary date.
Correct. Okay.
So I move to accept the recommendation of the board to award Mike the 3% raise and accept the evaluation and his goals.
I second.
I second.
Okay. Motion and a second to offer Mike a 3% increase. Questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Keep it up. Keep it up. Okay, so now we can move to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second. So moved. Thank you.